want to come here because of that. I'll let you go.
I will find you in a little bit, just to finish.
Okay, we're good.
Well, good morning, guys. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a good weekend. I'm glad you're here. I hope everyone had a good weekend. Sorry about that. We are going to get started here in just a minute. Just making sure that everyone is on, as well as our folks down in detox. As we start this morning, let's open with our serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. As we reflect on our weekend, as we enter this final week of the Lenten season, let's focus on what went well, what didn't go so well, what could we have done different, as we think on that and listen to our morning song.
In my wrestling and in my doubts, in my failures, you won't walk out. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. In the silence, you won't let go. In the questions, your truth will hold. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Whoa, you are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness, I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You will carry me safe to shore. Tomorrow brings. With each morning I'll rise and sing. My God's love will lead me through.
So we wrap up step 1 this morning. We admitted that we are powerless over drugs and or alcohol, and that our lives have become unmanageable. And so far we've talked about how we had to come to that honest place in our lives. We had to step out of our denial, and today we look at being powerless. We look at being powerless, and all throughout history there are stories of people coming to that point and finding out that they were powerless. Today we look at the story of Samson. Samson's story is more than just a little intriguing. Here is a guy who was called from birth to be dedicated to his God's service at the highest levels. You may wonder how that's possible. I mean, are not all of us called to service? Well, yeah, we are. But Samson was a Nazirite. And he had a unique calling that included representing his God and his God's honor to the Philistines. Of course, I'm simplifying this a little bit, but you get the point. Samson wasn't no ordinary person. His ministry was special, and he vowed to treat it as such. Unfortunately, like so many of us, Samson had a self-control problem. And he was power hungry in a lot of ways. This caused problems when he chose to flirt with unholy women, to act out his unholy passions. I hope you're paying attention here. This caused problems when he flirted with his pride, when he asserted himself as being in control of how long he could keep on with these shenanigans. Samson had specific instructions concerning his ministry, his mission, his unique calling. And yet he continually tempted the line, tried to play both sides of the fence. We can learn a lot from Samson's story. When he had played both sides of the fence one time too long, he was tricked, had his hair cut, blinded, imprisoned. This great man who had a great calling realized exactly what it meant to be powerless. We can learn a lot from Samson's story. We all have a calling on our lives. We all have a mission, something that we are meant to do, a purpose greater than ourselves. Part of our job in this life is to determine what that purpose is. The other part is, once we determine what it is, to do everything within our power to fulfill it. Samson, having taken his lumps for his failure, becoming a blind slave and mockery, finally got to the point where he realized he couldn't do this on his own. And he called upon his Lord. He confessed the wrongs that he committed, turned his heart from those things to his God, and asked for the strength to do what he was supposed to be doing all along. He asked for restoration, and he was restored. Before Samson died, God restored him to favor, strength, and one day he was more effective than his whole life. None of us like to admit we're powerless. None of us like to admit that our lives are unmanageable, that we're out of control. But it's not until we finally come to that realization that we can be strengthened and empowered to carry out the mission that is set before us in this life. When we accept the first step and we take our step out of denial and into reality, we see that there are very few things we actually do have control over. Once we admit that by ourselves we are powerless, we can stop living with the following serenity robbers that are tied to that word powerless. The P stands for pride. It's said that ignorance plus power plus pride is a deadly mixture. The O in powerless are the only ifs. If only this, and if only that, and if only this. When we live a life filled with only ifs, it keeps us trapped in a fantasy land of rationalizations. The next serenity robber is the W, and that's worry. Worrying is a form of not trusting our higher power enough. Worry will not help us accomplish our goals that we have. The E is the escape. When we live a life in denial, we may have escaped into a world of fantasy and unrealistic expectations of ourselves and others. But we can't keep living in that world. The R is the resentments. Resentments act like an emotional cancer. If they are allowed to fester and grow, they will eat at us. We must be willing to let them go and to find freedom. The L is loneliness. Loneliness is a choice. In recovery, we never walk alone. We have a support team that we gather around ourselves, as well as our higher power. That includes family, friends, sponsors, accountability partners, your counselors, your chaplains. My friends, you are not on this journey alone. And we should not experience loneliness as we are walking these steps. The E stands for emptiness. You know that feeling deep inside. The cold wind of hopelessness that blows right through us. The S's are selfishness and separation. When caught in the cycle of addiction, we get caught in a give me, give me, give me environment. It's all about us. It's all about that next high. And when it's all about us and we're only focused on that one thing, we are robbed of our sanity. In separation, we have found ourselves separated from family, from friends, from our higher power. While family and friends may walk away, my friends, our higher power never will. As we think on that today, and as we focus on our day ahead, we are reminded that there is beauty still to be found in the aftermath. I invite you to think with me on that.
Skies all I have, I count it all as a loss. But to know you, to carry the cross, knowing I'm found in the light of the aftermath.
As we go throughout our day, the question on our mind is, have I really come to that point where I can admit to myself, maybe admit to your counselor, that your lives had become unmanageable and that you are powerless over your addictions? Admitting this is the first step to recovery. Until we have that revelation, we cannot continue on this journey. Would you join me in our serenity prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. I hope you all have a blessed day. I'm glad you're here. Keep hanging in there.